Well, good evening. I'm going to call this public hearing to order. This is a public hearing to have a dry run for our hopefully moderator, to be elected moderator, and to really sort of iron out any of the bugs that we might find in our town warrant. So this is really an opportunity for anybody in the audience to please ask questions if something reveals itself that you don't quite understand or you disagree with. This is an opportunity to put a lot of eyes on the town warrant and hopefully move forward to the town meeting. So I'm going to turn it over to Bo, and please, if you have a question, go through Bo, and we'll all try to work together to answer any questions that you might have. Is that understandable how to go forward? All right, Bo.
I think we'll skip Article 1 and 2. Those are for the election of the moderator, and then elections for select board assessor, cemetery commissioner. Article 3 shall an ordinance entitled 2024 amendments to the Pownell Solid Waste Collection and Disposal Ordinance be enacted. A copy of the amendments are available at town meeting, and that was Exhibit A on the table there. Do we have any comments or questions? Is there someone that will be speaking to the article?
So transition from.
Actually, if you'd like, you want me to just read the narratives as well? Okay.
Though, if I may too, the narratives are very brief, so any edits and suggestions are welcome because I wrote them. It's only the initial draft, so any input would be great.
Okay, great. So the narrative that goes along with that article is this article is repealing the pay as you throw program as Casella moves to automation this summer and houses are supplied with required carts. Any questions or comments about that?
So there's a question that I want everybody to be aware of, that some towns who have gone to automation have kept the pay per bag as a way to potentially moderate the amount of trash that's produced. If you have to buy a bag, put it in a bucket, seems counterintuitive, but so it's really important to sort of think about repealing this ordinance. Because without it, you can put whatever you want in the trash bucket and whatever you want in the recycling bucket, and the only limitation is the size of the bucket. So Pownell's done a really good job with its waste, in my opinion. I think pay for throw was a great idea, and we saw reduced waste stream and increased recycling. So as we go through this first ordinance, it's important just to consider what we're doing. We're going to repeal the pay for throw, then we'll go with whatever Casella produces in terms of bins. Is there anything else, Becky, that you'd like to add to that?
Sure, the edits are on page 3, items 4 and 7, just so they stand out. So it's still requiring that trash be in a bag in the cart. It just would eliminate the actual Pownell blue bags if it passes. And then there was one small spelling correction on the front page. If we're gonna, do it, why don't we correct that as well? But basically what John said is pretty much the summary of what we're looking at.
If you would, sir, if you would like to stand up to the microphone and identify yourself, and merely because we're recording and you get to be on video.
Henry Nichols, North Pownell. So, Bo, will there be 2 carts? I understand, one for recycling, one for waste. Is that correct?
That is my understanding.
That's my question.
And one of the challenges with the new bins, with the paper tag system still in place, is there's no way to enforce that. So some people may be paying for their bags and other people wouldn't be.
Because the driver can't see what's in the,
Exactly. And your.
Does it have a
and your
camera?
neighbor- And your neighbor can't see the bags.
does it have a camera on that truck that look in that thing that when he flips it up, it says whoops?
My understanding is that there was an option that the town had or was looking at having to do with artificial intelligence. And some towns have actually paid to have cameras installed and are monitoring their paper tag system using the automated pickups.
Okay, so that cost, of course, that costs extra. We don't want to pay for that, of course.
Well, I think the select board and the solid waste committee resisted the temptation to spy on people's trash.
So we could assume most of us in town. So I mean, right now, I would guess there's gonna be some cheaters, but I'm gonna guess the percentile is gonna be 75, 80, where we abide by the rules, and there's gonna be a few. So that's not so bad.
We'll see.
If there's 20% cheaters, I guess. Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sammy. Any other comments or questions? Okay, moving right along, Article 4. So shall the town vote to repeal floodplain management ordinance originally enacted at the March 9, 2009 special town meeting, and any subsequent amendments, and further to enact an ordinance entitled 2024 floodplain management ordinance for the town of Pownell, enacted June 17, 2024, and effective June 20, 2024. Again, the copy is there. The narrative is this article rescinds the 2009 floodplain ordinance and any amendments. The state of Maine has updated the maps, and towns are required to adopt the new maps by June 20th, 2024. Any questions on that? Okay.
So I just want to clarify on the narratives, the article numbers are not going to match because originally that was 2 separate articles, but the attorney review suggested it be under one, and I had not updated the narratives from that edit last week.
Okay, so
Just so, yeah, just so you know, so Article 5 in the narrative, strike that one, and then I'll renumber them for the next public hearing.
so the additional Article 5 says this article is adopting new floodplain.
Correct. Yeah, it's a one in one article. Yeah.
There's a spelling error on the cover of it.
Yes, that was the adopted one in 2009. That's the one that we're repealing and replacing. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions on that one? Okay. Article 5. Shall an ordinance entitled 2024 Amendments to the Town of Pownell Land Use and Zoning Ordinance, Section 400 Definitions, be enacted? That's in Exhibit D. And see attached memo from North Star Planning is a narrative. And that's the floodplain. Any questions or comments on that?
We also have Sam from North Star here, so if she has any questions, she can answer them.
If you'd like, you can just take a brief moment and just talk to people about why you feel these are necessary for the town.
Sure. So all of these next few articles pertain to LD 2003 updates are required by the state. So it's the new housing law that went into effect. And it allows for up to 4 dwelling units on a lot in a growth area or for areas served by public sewer and water. Since Pownell doesn't have a growth area and any public utilities, the town has to allow for up to 2 dwelling units per lot. And this can be either two single-family homes, a single-family home and an ADU, or two-family dwelling. So a lot of this work in each of the relevant sections was really more for consistency's sake. So for example, with section 400, clarifying the definition around accessory dwelling unit to be consistent with the state, and then adding a new definition for two-family dwelling because the town currently allows two-family dwelling in section 504, but there's no definition for it. And then regarding the district standards, really more of just cleaning up that section and making sure that any new residential structures or accessory structures to residential uses are not more restrictive in terms of dimensional standards and setbacks. And then finally, in regards to that, having separate performance standards for accessory dwelling units that are compliant with the state. So those are general overview of those changes.
I'm sorry, John, could you step up to the microphone and identify yourself? Thanks.
John Green, I live on Royal Road, and is this a point where we can ask questions about the definitions that somebody has proposed? Or is this the discussion on the town warrant article itself?
It is a discussion about the ordinance, the article itself. But I think if you have a specific question, by all means.
I mean, it makes sense to,
Yeah, yeah, it's a public hearing, sure.
Right, so I used to do a little bit of assessing, and you can look at the real estate transfer forms and basically see what property is sold for any place in the state. Anytime, it's all online. And there was a small subdivision that went in close to us on Royal Road. It's very interesting. The initial build, the new house was built in 2018. It sold in 2019. And what's very interesting, it sold again just last fall, which is 2023. So if you want to bracket in all the terrible things with COVID, one of them being where property values have just skyrocketed. When I looked at that transfer sheet, the sale of that property, which was to Maine people, went up 62%. 62%. I think that's probably the most realistic property transfer anybody can see in Pownell. So I don't particularly like when mandates come down from the state, but this is one that I actually agree with. I think something has to be done to ensure that people who have probably lived in Pownell for generations don't get priced out of the market, and particularly their kids. I mean, if you've got a child maybe going through a divorce, or you want to, have them stay in this town, this really hits home because you're able to, have a accessory dwelling unit, or I think a addition house on your property. It probably has the biggest impact in Pownell for quite some time as far as potential growth, but I think it's needed. I really do. So that's the background. The specific question I have about the accessory dwelling unit, lots of people have accessory structures, different than accessory dwelling unit. Accessory structure is not attached to the main structure. It might be a garage, might be a workshop, it might be something like that. Typically, the second story is probably unfinished. And I think these may be some of the structures that people may decide that they want to convert into an accessory dwelling unit in the future. And when I read these definitions, there's some amount of ambiguity in here, whether you can actually convert either an existing or perhaps a proposed garage with the garage on the lower level and then an accessory dwelling unit on the second level. So I think you're the expert, ma'am, and can you answer that question based upon what you have right here in the ordinance, in the proposed ordinance?
Yeah, so if you're asking if you can convert accessory structures to an accessory dwelling unit, I believe you can, as long as that has adequate subsurface wastewater disposal and it meets the performance standards.
Okay. So the reason I bring up that question, because I did look at the DECD guidelines for this, and they kind of say you want to kind of add something into your proposed ordinance if you want to do it, because it's not particularly apparent with what, the legislature put out, initially. I'll show you later on perhaps what I'm talking about. But again, I think it's a great idea. I think people are, the economy is going good now. In the future, you never can tell. You've always got family. And I think this is a good idea. I'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and just in general, I think it's always good to remember when we're looking at ordinance changes that perfection is an ideal. And there's always the opportunity to amend ordinances going forward, as well as flaws may become evident in the administration of those.
Except you can't amend them at town meeting.
Excuse me, John?
You can't amend an ordinance at town meeting.
You can't amend
You
and
cannot. It's an up or down vote.
you can't amend a proposed ordinance, the language in a ordinance that's up for discussion, such as the one that's been published. That's the purpose of the public meeting, to see if there may be some tweaking necessary. But it's an up or down vote at the meeting, so you can vote on those ordinances, so you can amend them the next town meeting if you'd like. But I would, if you're, in your discussion, I think if you feel that there's a flaw and our hired expert would agree, I think that there's an opportunity at the next public hearing to present an amendment to that or a change before the article is published for the warrant. So, thank you.
John, could you step up for a minute, because you raised an interesting question. Would you just step up so we have this conversation? So can you just sort of clarify, because I think I'm hearing what you're saying. And so if I have a garage and I want to put an apartment on that garage, then what in this ordinance allows me to do it? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying, John, is that there seems to be a distinction between an attached accessory structure and a not attached accessory structure. And again, when I looked at the DEC guidelines, they seem to get into a little bit more than maybe anybody else. And when I looked at the proposed ordinance, I said, now, wait a minute. Is it possible that once this thing is passed, that somebody wants to convert a detached garage that has space up above into a accessory dwelling unit? And when the planning board does their fine work, they look at the detailed wording and they say, now, wait a minute, maybe you can't do that. So that's why I bring it up now.
Okay, so you're asking for clarifying language in the ordinance to make it easier for someone to perform that.
Basically, yes.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to understand what you were asking. Thanks, John.
Other questions regarding Article 5? Yep, Henry, I've got to ask that you step up to the mic again.
John, was it John? Yes. Yeah, Henry, northbound. I think you hit on this. I mean, even before you start buying nails and lumber, you have to go see that lady there, probably. And invite her to your garage or anybody. And she's gonna look over your paperwork for your septic system. Probably. I mean, and say, if you're adding 2 more bedrooms or even 1 bedroom, we might have a problem because your septic system is designed for your home. I just wanted to point that out. Am I correct in pointing that out? I think there's more to it than just, hey, I'm gonna build an apartment upstairs and
Let's
tie in.
ask Jenny. Jenny, could you step up, please? This is Jennifer Giddings. She's our code enforcement officer. Did you understand Mr. Green's question? And
So basically, right now, If someone wants to put an apartment above the garage as an ADU, it still has the same 750 square feet, but they are required to make sure that they have a separate subsurface wastewater. So it can be done as the ordinances are right now. And I believe you are correct in what the state had stated about conversion.
But what I didn't hear.
Conversion, I'm sorry.
Conversion.
Mhm.
But does that include both attached and detached garages?
I believe those are in our definitions, yes.
All right.
Yep.
I may have missed it, Gene.
That's okay. That's why we're asking questions.
Great question. That's why I wanted to clarify before we go to town meeting, not miss the opportunity, to make sure it's clear. Thank you, Bo. Thank you, John Green.
Any other thoughts on that one? Okay, go to Article 6, shall an ordinance entitled 2024 Amendments to the Town of Pownell Land Use Zoning Ordinance, Section 504, zoning districts be enacted. Now, that would be Exhibit E. Which looks like this. And where did my comments go? Did you steal them, Andy? I did not. Somebody have those handy?
Maybe Sam could talk to this while you're looking.
Right on top here. I'm sorry.
Oh, maybe Sam could.
Please.
So this is pertaining to district standards and what's gonna be changing. So basically this is more a lot of this is really clarity's sake. So the town currently has 2-family dwellings as subject to like minimum lot areas, but 2-family dwelling is not listed as a permitted use, so that was added as a permitted use. And in addition to allowing 2-family dwellings per lot area, I also included 2 single-family dwellings as well, because you can have 2 single-family dwellings on one lot as well as just a 2-family dwelling. And then clarifying the fact that all structures, including residential structures and accessory structures to residential use, are subject to the same setback and road frontage requirements.
Okay, so really dovetail with the other previously discussed article. Any comments or questions there? John, did you have any thoughts? Okay. Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to the next article, Article 8. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $155,000 for the capital project fund. Select Board recommends approval on that, and this is a yearly request from the CIP committee to fund future projected needs for capital expenditures. Any comments or questions with Article 8 in the CIP project fund? Okay, seeing none. We'll move to Article 9 to see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate $300,000 from the unassigned fund balance to the capital project fund. This is really dovetails with the previous article. Any questions there? The narrative is the article allows a transfer of money from the unassigned fund balance to the CIP account. The purpose of this article is to help with the inflation rates and smoothing as the committee projects out current replacement costs. Any questions with regard to that? Okay, we'll move to Article 10. To see if the town will vote to appropriate up to $153,231 from the capital projects fund to purchase the following items. Or to see what action the town will take. Public safety air packs, $109,519. Communications, $26,312, and repeater system of $17,400. Select Board's recommending approval on that. Article allows the transfer of money from the unassigned. Article asks the town to approve money from the CIP account for public safety purchases as listed on the warrant. Any questions there? That's previous two articles put money into the CIP account. This article, we're pulling some money out for some equipment. Yep, yeah, afraid so.
In your steps in, Henry.
You could move your chair closer if you'd
Well,
like.
Scott can answer this question. I don't know how much air packs cost, but we're talking about fire department air packs, you know? How many does that buy? 109,000?
I'm sorry, Scott, I'm gonna ask you just to step up to the microphone.
Actually, we got a couple officers here from the fire department. That probably is a lot better than me.
Okay.
But I believe he's proposed replacement pack for each truck, each position on the truck. And Andy probably can answer that.
Could you, Andy?
I believe 21 packs.
So they're quite pricey.
They are pricey.
What's the life expectancy of these air packs?
Fif-
Revisions.
yeah,
Say that again, Scott?
3 revisions of NFPA rules.
It's a
So
little complicated.
it is. The NFPA tells us,
Right now, your existing air packs are at 2 revisions and waiting for 3 to get,
right.
okay. You answered my question.
And as a caveat, we have applied for a grant for the air packs. So this 109,519 may not be spent, but we won't know on the grant until after town meeting.
Thank you. Thanks.
So that raises the question, if the town votes this article in, votes to spend 153,000 from the capital projects fund, and we get the grant and we don't need to take it from the capital projects fund,
It stays in the capital projects fund. That's why we did an up to amount.
Thank you. Okay. That up to language is critical. Thank you. Any questions on that? Okay, Article 11, to see if the town will vote to appropriate up to $268,000 from the capital projects fund for the purchase of the following items, or to see what action the town will take. And this is for public works, a dump truck, truck number 2, just replacement, $268,000. This article is seeking the town to approve money from the CIP account for the public works purchase of that truck. It's replacing truck number 2, which is coming to the end of its service life. Any questions on that one? Okay. And so we're up to our budget articles now. Article 12, to see if the town will raise and appropriate $11,941 for a part-time IT position. We see there the compensation is $10,920. There's FICA, Medicare, and earned family medical leave. The Budget Committee and Select Board are both recommending approval. The job description has been attached. And this article is creating a part-time IT position. This person will be responsible for website upkeep, the monthly constant contact emails, running the AV equipment, and updating the town's social media. This person will also look at ways to reorganize the website and free up space. This may include exploring other website hosting services. This is in response to requests from departments and committees to have their own presence on the website, growing IT-related items. The need to increase space on the website is also in response to managing the rental of the DeWitt room. Any questions there, comments? Sir?
Steve Krugerman from Pownell on Elmwood Road. I just noted a couple details about this. One is that I think it might be a challenge to find somebody with AV skills as well as IT skills, but you'll see what you get for candidates. And that may be hard to find somebody with the IT skills you're requiring for that salary. But again, you probably looked into that. And then I would just like to note I don't know whether it's a typo or, but under necessary knowledge, skills and abilities, it says the last bullet item is ability to use digression in regards to confidential issues, and I think that should read discretion. Thank you.
Also, you'll notice the header says Deputy Town Clerk. I realized after I printed them that I hadn't updated that. So on the website and moving forward, that has already been corrected, just in case you noticed that typo too. Thanks.
Thank you for, yeah. Henry,
Yeah.
step up.
So this is a part-time position. And this person, of course, I mean, most of their work is from their office or home.
There could be remote option, or it would be here using this computer, uploading the meetings to our YouTube page. And
How did this person come recommended?
so I'm just sort of looking at other towns and what they're doing in their IT, sort of splitting it off and having a part-time position where someone might work a job, but then could do this in the evenings and things like that. So just to sort of free up a little bit of my time and make sure we're utilizing everything and putting the necessary information out there by designating someone who's responsible for this.
So we haven't picked anyone?
No, we don't. This would go out for advertisement. We would accept applications, do interviews, everything. So
And someone that we do choose, even though it's part-time, they would certainly be bonded, am I right?
yes, they're covered through Maine Municipal Association.
So if they
Yes.
want to get into our money somehow.
They would not really have access to that because they would mostly probably be working up here. And so we're behind a locked door in the office. So I would always be on
Things
site.
happen, You know, I'm just saying, if they're bonded, right?
Sure.
Our important question that they're insured and bonded and trustworthy. Okay.
Because we're a member of Maine Municipal Association and they would be in our employment, they would be covered under our insurance that way. Yep, absolutely. Good question.
And you're free to apply, Henry. If
I don't have those skills.
any other questions there for the part-time IT position?
Because I think digression would be a great skill to have on confidential.
You can digress and not need one. Article 13, to see if the town will raise and appropriate $26,791 for a part-time public works position, compensation of $24,500, again with FICA, Medicare, and family medical leave. Both the Budget Committee and Select Board are recommending approval. This article is creating a part-time position in the Public Works Department. This will enable more efficient use of existing staff and ensure adequate coverage during vacations and absences. We have questions there, comments. You all set, Henry?
What is it? What exactly would be part-time, like 32 hours or 36 hours? Is that what we're talking about? Or, oh, I didn't,
25 hours a week, up to 25 hours a week.
okay. And who would have the final say? Our road commissioner would select? Okay. Okay, thank you.
And being part-time, they would not be eligible for health insurance?
That is correct. They would be considered level 3 employment. So, so there wouldn't be any paid time off except for under the Maine earned leave law, not under our town personnel policy.
Any other questions on that?
But just for clarity's sake, that would put our Public Works Department at 3 full and 1 half. Okay, just so you know, we're not adding one more. So it's not 4.5, it's 3.5. Yeah.
Okay, Article 14, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $552,292 for general government. And under general government, we have general government, technology, animal control, planning board, and compensation. Both the Budget Committee and the Select Board agree with those figures as proposed. It's actually a decrease of 1% from the previous year. And general government budget that decline is mostly due to a transitioning away from North Star planning because we have our own town planner now. So any questions there? Okay. We'll move to Article 15. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $12,350 for human services. You see there, we have compensation, general assistance, Freeport Community Services through these doors, and Teen Port Center. Both Select Board and Budget Committee recommending approval. And the Human Services budget is level funding from the previous year, so there's no change in that. Any question there? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to Article 16.
Oh, I'm sorry, well,
You missed your chance, Henry. Come on up, please.
I always pay attention to these numbers and this part of our budget, but we have last year's number here.
Yes, you have, on the left-hand side, you see last year's budget and then this year's budget.
Typically, all of that gets used up.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, for instance, Freeport Community Services, the town writes a check to Freeport Community
The
Services.
general assistance, who's in charge of that? Do we write checks? If somebody comes in and says, God, I need fuel.
There's a process.
Okay,
Yes,
okay, but we've used up that.
we have used it. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And that general assistance, and Becky, just for fuel, for instance, they would work with Freeport Community Services, which has a fuel fund. So they're looking for where the resources can be found for that sort of need.
And Bo, if I may, also notary services are a donation based, and that goes to the Keep Pownell Warm Fund that we send to Freeport Community Services for them helping supply Pownell residents with heating assistance.
And in the interest of full disclosure, I'm on the board at FCS. Any other questions there? Okay, we're gonna go to Article 16 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $48,900 for Mallet Hall. That's the Budget Committee and Select Board are recommending that. There's an increase there in the maintenance line item of $10,480. And it is due to the scheduled painting of the south side of the building, which is a larger project than the previous year. The south side being this side, painted the front last year. Any questions there?
Hopefully we won't do it during Pumpkin Fest.
Yeah, we're gonna try to avoid.
This price, is this the price that's been submitted, a bid that's been submitted? Or do we know?
An estimate,
It has.
yes,
Okay, so we did put it out for bid and we received how many bids?
one.
Wow.
Again,
Painters are busy.
this is an estimate, not
Okay,
a contractual.
thank you, thank you.
Any questions, other questions there? Okay, we'll move along. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $184,839 for public safety. See the breakdown there, you have public safety, administration, compensation, buildings and operations. That's an 11% increase of $18,337. Select Board and Budget Committee recommend approval. Public safety budget is an 11% increase, is mostly driven by the purchase of gear for new staff and to replace aging gear. Any questions there? Okay, seeing none, we'll move right along to Article 18. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $921,879 for public works. Both the Budget Committee and Select Board recommend that amount. It's a 5% increase from last year, and Public Works budget is driven mostly by compensation and small increases in supplies and services. This is separate from that part-time position that was not voted on, but previous article. Do we have questions there? Seeing none, we'll go to Article 19. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $166,223 for solid waste. That's a 28, I'm sorry, Budget Committee and Select Board are recommending approval. And the Budget Committee is recommending $153,223. Select Board is recommending the figure of $166,223. And part of the increase is mostly driven by the changes in the automation that we're looking at this summer and the need for the carts to be purchased. The cost of the carts is spread over 4 years through the Casella budget or contract. It also includes money to order pay per tag bags should Article 3 not pass. If Article 3 passes, the amount can be amended on the floor to the Budget Committee's recommendation. People follow that? So if the previous article that was voting to get rid of the paper tags system doesn't pass, we have to vote in a higher amount to cover the bags that the town's gonna have to buy on an ongoing basis, which it then sells to the residents. If we get rid of the paper tag, which is what's being proposed, then we don't have to pay for those bags, and the budget would drop to $153,000. It would drop from $166,000 to $153,000.
Price of the bags, Henry, is $12,000 to make a run of bags. You don't have to buy them, and we'll drop the
How many bucks do we use?
one. And we're all out now, so we're.
Fine line of having enough bags, but
Yes.
get us to town meeting. Okay, any other questions there? Good question. Article 20, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $3,700 for Pownell Center Water Association. That's a 9% increase of $300. The Budget Committee is recommending, and the Select Board is also recommending the $3,700. It's to fill the fuel tanks once the standby generator has been installed at the pump. So any questions there? That's gonna be a propane generator.
Yep.
They're gonna fill the tanks.
Why we're here. That's why we're here. No, that's why we're here, Henry. Please, you're doing it.
We have a maintenance program with these people that serve our generator up there, for that water system.
The generator is not set as yet. We got a grant last year. We've been getting estimates and hope to be putting it in over the summer. But we will need to fill propane tanks to run it. Right now, we have a portable generator that's gasoline next to a well, and it's
Yeah.
probably not a great.
Yeah, you're right. Understood. How many buildings is that serving? It's serving the town hall, correct?
Serves the town hall, 5 residences and the store.
Okay.
And the fire
It
station.
sounds like cheap money. I think we're lucky.
Particularly for the guy who has to go out and fill the generator each year. Well,
Well, typically it's the road commissioner.
any other questions there? I'm sorry, Andy. You're saying we don't know if we have the grant or not?
We have the
have
grant
the
to buy
grant.
it. We
Okay.
just,
I didn't know if we needed to do an up to $3,700
no,
or, okay. Okay, we'll move along here. Article 21, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $6,000 for cemeteries. At the Budget Committee and Select Board are recommending it. Relatively small dollar increase, but it's a relatively small budget, so it's 20% increase. Let's do the increase of supplies and wages. Any questions there on cemetery work? Well, Dwayne out working today in cemeteries. Okay, we'll move on to Article 22. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $271,164 for debt service and other obligations. Budget committee and select board are recommending that figure. Debt service is a decrease as the existing bonds and associated interest declines as we're paying them off over time. And the bonds are listed there. Any questions there? Okay, that's a pretty straightforward one. 23, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $500 for recreation committee. That's a $2,000 decrease from last year. Budget committee and select board are recommending that, and they're asking, recreational committee is asking for a small amount to continue the events which have been successful. Current events are providing donations to help offset their expenses. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, Article 23 is done. We'll go to Article 24 to see if the town, I keep wanting, I'm sorry,
I'm
Henry.
sorry, is that for like our pocket festivals?
Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
community days. Other. And I keep wanting to say, okay, Article 3 passed, 23 passes, but I won't. Article 24, to see if the town will appropriate up to $11,200 from the coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds, AKA American Rescue Plan or ARPA funds received by the town from the federal government for the following projects. Backup generator for North Station Fire Department building and to run the repeater tower. The select board is recommending approval. And this is money from the ARPA funds that we received in 2021, 2022. So it's to install a backup generator at the North Station. The repeater tower is also located there. When power goes out, the tower does not function. The current situation relies on someone to go start a generator and keep it fueled during power outage. Similar to the water situation. Any questions there? Okay, seeing none, we'll move along to Article 25 to see if the town will appropriate up to $60,000 from coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds, AKA American Rescue Plan or ARPA funds received by the town from the federal government for the following projects. Renovating 2 rooms in Mallet Hall for additional office space. The select board is recommending approval. And when the budget committee is not making a recommendation, it means the budget committee did not review the expenditure. Article 20, they're asking for funds to renovate 2 rooms in the front of Mallet Hall. Current office configurations don't meet the needs of the current staff. The town planner would occupy one of the offices and would allow for more growth and storage. Any questions there? Okay. We'll move along to Article 26 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $15,000 for Economic Development and Sustainability Committee to investigate water capacity in the village district as part of the work charge to that committee. Select board is recommending approval. And the Economic Development and Sustainability Committee received a grant from the state to do a water study. The grant covers 80% of the cost of the study. This request covers the other 20% match that the town has to come up with. So pretty good return on that investment. Any questions on that? Henry?
Yes, Paul, what exactly does that mean? Let's just study, what will these people do? Will they come in and bore holes down into our aquifer?
It's basically hydrogeology to see what the aquifer can produce, should we find a need for it. If we want to supply some fire protection in the village area or something like that.
Good to know.
Right,
And they'll tell us how much and quality.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
I want to follow up Harry's question.
Sure.
Water systems are expensive. I worked one summer down in Boston for an engineering firm and boy, I kept them busy all the time. And I'm just wondering, what's the scope, what's the potential scope of this? Are we talking about providing town water for potential businesses up and down the road in the business area here, or something less than that? Because right now we have a limited water system that, you know, deals with some houses that have been, you know, polluted with the sand and salt shed. I'm looking for the potential scope of this in the future. Maybe there's not an answer at this point. Maybe this is just a study issue.
Yeah, it's a good question. My understanding is, John, that the committee is trying to identify what resources or limitation on resources the town has with respect to potential village district development or things like that. And water is a key one. Do we even have the water to consider expansion or not? And they're trying to define the magnitude of those available resources. So it's just one little piece of what they're trying to.
Andy, you're on the committee. Do you have anything to add to what both said?
There may be a potential of, should we have the water available down the road, for supplying water for businesses and such, but at this time, there's nothing cast in stone. I mean, probably as businesses come in, they would be required to pay for the upgrades to.
Yeah, I mean, my thought is that's, you know, anyway, I agree. It's a good thing to do. You're getting grant money. There's really nothing lost. You have more information.
Right.
Thank you.
Please.
Ties into those comments, questions, but, this doesn't have to do with current needs of the village water district or?
No,
Okay.
not particularly. It's just
Like it's been said.
investigating
Yeah.
for the future, should there be a need for
Planning ahead.
smaller
Good stuff.
lots. You're not gonna be able to put a well and septic on a lot.
Any other questions there? Okay. We'll move to Article 27. See if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate up to $50,000 from unassigned fund balance for exploration of a site and design draft of a public safety and or public works facility for the future facilities committee. I think that should say.
Well, it may be a future facilities committee, but it will be a different one.
Oh, yeah?
Well, probably some of the same players, but.
Questions there? Yeah, I'm sorry, that the money is continuing the work of the Future Facilities Committee. The next step would be site and design draft. The committee, of which I sit and Andy sits, and a number of other folks here in the room, is awaiting the study from architect and environmental engineering firm on the lot next door to us to see how suitable that lot would be for a potential combined facility. Rather than having to wait another full cycle budgetary, we need to, that money is identified to help move the process forward. Should it be appropriate. Want to add anything?
Yeah, we are awaiting the needs assessment from Port City Architecture, which does a preliminary square footage needs and that type of thing. And they're doing the assessment of the lot next door as well through a secondary contractor.
Of course, Andy, they've talked with our fire chief and
The road
road
commissioner.
commissioner. They've given them data. This is what we need. This is what we have now. But this is what we're gonna need, right? I guess. Probably, Scott.
Correct. Both of those parties are on the committee.
Okay,
Have been integral part of the planning process. And
Yeah.
Working with them. Yep.
okay, thank you.
Got a lot of data.
We wouldn't bypass them, Henry.
If the town will be hearing more on this, to be sure, it's a big issue for the town, to be sure. Any other thoughts there? Okay, we'll go to Article 28. To see if the town will vote to accept and apply $737,380 of the following non-property tax revenues to reduce the total amount authorized to be raised by taxation, and to see if the town will authorize the select board and town treasurer to accept any additional revenues or funds and expend any other revenue from the state, federal, local, and private sources for the support of the town that may be used to reduce the amount required by taxation. And you see the full list there. Those are projected income streams. The select board is recommending approval. And the commentary is, these are the anticipated revenues we expect to collect. Any questions there? We're seeing a decrease in total revenues of 13,000 is projected, with the largest difference being $39,000 reduction in state revenue sharing. You see, we're trying to refine the budget too on some specific line items, automobile excise tax, and checking interest, which are historically been budgeted too low versus the actual. And we're trying to improve that visibility. John?
So Bo, this speaks to Mr. Green's observation about rising real estate sale prices. So as our sale price continues, average sale, median sale price goes up, our revenue sharing continues to go down. So it's a pretty significant, and will continue.
And that's because the overall value of the town increases, therefore we don't get as much subsidy because we're a wealthier town.
You and me both.
In theory.
In theory, in the eyes of the state. Okay. Any other questions there? John, please.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't have to be the budget guide, also the income coming in on this, but after all these things get done at the June town meeting, somebody will usually stand up and say, well, what does this mean for our taxes? Can you tell us what the mill rate's gonna be? And traditionally, the information all isn't in. And I was very interested, and Becky did a really good job on the minutes back in last July, when really the Board of Assessors made the determination of the mill rate. There's a lot of discussion there of what could the assessors and the selectmen do to better answer that question in June, when somebody said, how does this impact us in the pocketbook or the wallet? And I think there was some discussion about coming up with an estimator, some sort of a better guesstimate than perhaps you had in the past. And I thought about that, and I actually saved the minutes because I probably should have come down to one of the budget meetings, and I apologize for that. But actually, the biggest unknown and the largest unknown that prevents you folks from doing that is not knowing what the CMP valuation would be. And basically, we're kind of at the mercy of CMP. CMP tells us what they believe their poles and the substation and whatnot is worth. And apparently, they've stuck to this June 30th date to provide that information. I quickly looked at the statutes a couple of weeks ago. I see nothing out there that makes that, something in stone that's actually has to be followed. And I'm thinking the town meeting in June is about no more than 2 weeks before CMP has sent in that information traditionally. If there could be some agreement with CMP to get that information to the town in the middle of June, you would essentially have all the all the information to come up with that answer. How does it, how does all the articles that have been voted upon or would be voted upon, how does that affect the future mill rate? So I guess my question is, I wouldn't forget about that, and maybe this is the time with a couple of months to go to check and see if that's possible. I have no idea what the relationship with CMP is with the selectmen. I mean, I think towns have different relationships. I was in the town and we never talked to them, but CMP has 22% of our valuation. They're the biggest taxpayer. We kind of go and come with CMP. One thing to think about, we have a lot more power going through that substation now than we did a couple of years ago with the electric cars and with heat pumps. And I don't know how they exactly do the valuation. It's business related. There's depreciation in there. It's a very complicated process, but again, if you could get that information 2 weeks sooner than you have been getting in the past, it could mean something at the June town meeting. So I just throw this out as something to think about. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
So I think it's a really good idea, Mr. Green, and we have always been in communication with CMP. They're rather reticent to divulge their evaluation. I'm not quite sure why. I think the next step is to probably either threaten or hire an industrial assessor and give our own value to their property, and maybe that would move the process a little bit faster. But we haven't had the will or the money really, because it's expensive to do that, and we've always sort of been at their beck and call. We now are facing another large business coming into town, and it may be time to, more practically look at having an industrial appraiser come in and do those taxes. But we'll try to get that. We will try to get that CMP valuation. I mean, our assessing agent is in close contact with CMP. Donna has had poor luck as well. But it is true that we'll do our best. We'll try to estimate CMP, and if we take all the money that's going to be hopefully approved or not, we take the warrant, take the school evaluation, take the county evaluation. We'll try to get an estimate as promised for town meeting. But we can't guarantee the mill rate before we actually do the work with the assessor. Becky, can you weigh in on this? That's what we have. I think that was our strategy, right? We were going to, once again, it's an estimate, so it's not really fair to the taxpayer, but it's the best we can do, I think.
That's correct, because I have gone into the mill rate tax collector using the current year's valuation with the current proposed budgets, just to see what it would look like, but it's not accurate because we don't know what our final valuation is going to be mostly until the last week of June, because CMP waits so long to get us that. Donna is currently doing her field work and doing her updates for new builds and renovations and things that happened right now. So she does all that work ahead, and then we're just waiting for that one final piece. So there's a chance mid-June, we would have maybe a 80 to 90% solid amount, but we would still probably be waiting on CMP. So it wouldn't be 100% accurate at that point.
Is Donna communicating with PUC, because that would be the state agency that actually has some, some power over CMP.
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask her.
What's that?
I would have to ask her who she communicates with. I'm not sure.
I mean, Wisconsin, it was fascinating. They never were able to get the full valuation of it. We were to really a dump out there, and they went to the legislature this last session. They got the legislature to change the law, so they have a relatively large new income source coming in. So I mean, it's I agree, it's hard to do. Let's try to back to the other place, but I think, a little bit of, talking to the right people, and, nothing's gonna happen this year, but maybe in a year or two, you might be able to get it. And that's, I know you guys are trying as much as you can. It's a very, something to do.
But as promised, John, we will at this town meeting say, if everything passes, this will be an estimate of your mill rate, just so that people know how that's going to affect their tax bill in general. I think that was our agreement after a conversation at last town meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other comments or questions on that? Okay, we're really looking at the revenue stream when we got into broader discussion there. Article 29 is see if the town will vote to appropriate $12,560 from the dedicated impact fee open space funds for surveying town-owned land, Swisher Road, map 4, lot 20. This is a continuing effort to survey all of town-owned parcels of land. Any questions there? Seeing none, we'll move along to Article 30, see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate up to $300,000 from the undesignated, unassigned fund balance to minimize the tax mill rate increase, and that's a appropriate up to $300,000. Select Board is recommending approval. And it is often, unassigned fund balance is often referred to as surplus or undesignated funds to help minimize, transfers being requested to help minimize the mill rate increase. And as the Select Board has done, this in previous years. And any questions there, comments? Okay. Article 31. See if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate funds remaining in the Panel Center Water Association, PCWA, operating funds at the end of fiscal year 25 to the PCWA Reserve Fund. Select Board is recommending approval, and the transfer allows for any unexpended funds to go back into the sinking fund for the water district. The fund currently stands at $14,344. The goal is to have a fund balance of $20,000. The purpose of the fund is to have money available in the event of an emergency to keep the water district functioning, well failure, pump failure, etc. Sir.
Just in the last 3 years, we drew from that sinking fund for a replacement well pump and 2 booster pumps for that pump station. So we're just trying to replace that money over a period of time.
Any questions there? Okay, we'll go on to Article 32 to see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board to explore acquiring the hall from the North Pownell Community Club located at 857 Lawrence Road for the use as a town building for $1, or to see what action the town will take. This really is asking the Select Board to have the authority to explore acquiring the hall from the North Pownell Community Club. They would be researching what repairs might be needed, along with looking at long-term operating costs and creating a budget. If after this research, the Select Board decides to pursue the purchase, it would for $1 and a warrant article. It would for $1 and a warrant article would be on the June 25th annual warrant for the town to vote on. Okay, so
June 2025.
in June 2025. So
Yeah.
really, this article is just giving the Select Board the authorization to do that investigation and have negotiations subject to a subsequent town meeting. Correct? Okay, any questions there? Everybody know what building that is? Sure.
What building it is, I'm just a little bit unclear on. So the Select Board would not make a decision until a year from June. Is that what I'm hearing?
The,
As I read that, yes.
Okay,
the townspeople would make the decision on
Okay.
whether or not we would purchase it at a subsequent town meeting in 2025.
and there's currently no potential uses for this. It just seems like it might have some potential uses. You would be exploring those versus the costs and maintenance and stuff like
We've
that.
tossed around some possible uses as far as the Historical Society may be using it for, or another group such as that.
New Public Works building.
I don't think so. It's smaller than what they have.
Um, Oh, I noticed that there's no recommendation from the select board on this. Is that just an omission or?
We're asking the town to give us permission to look at the building to see whether or not it is worth entering into an agreement with the North Pownell Community Club, nonprofit, to transfer ownership of the building, and the select board would only move forward with town approval next year of that dollar
Okay,
expenditure.
so just would be redundant to say that the select board, but.
We don't want to have a double approval of that.
Thank you.
Do any of the neighbors wish to speak to this?
Well, we all understand nothing's free. And, you know, my great neighbor Alan, I can't ever, people that don't know Alan, like he's put volunteer. I can't tell you how many hours. Countless hours. But ownership of this building is not gonna be free. Once if the town does acquire it, and I'm sure this investigation will tell us what it's gonna cost a year for us, approximately, to own that building. It's a great building, and it would be great if we could preserve any building like that. A lot of work has been done to secure its bones and fix the roof, and it'd be a great meeting place for some, you know, the historical society or something. The town's only gonna grow. It will find a use at some point.
And Henry is a neighbor, right?
Yeah, you live across the street, correct?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on that? Okay, we'll move along to Article 33. See if the town will enter into an easement agreement with the Royal River Land Trust for property located on Elmwood Road, map 9, lot 43, or to see what action the town will take. The easement is Exhibit I. And H, G. Exhibit I looks like this. And since this is not a town meeting, other folks, non-resident members can speak without a vote by the group. So anyone is allowed to speak to this. Do I have any questions or comments on this?
I got a few comments.
Sure. Could you step up to the mic, please?
Well, my name's Scott Pollock. I live on Elmwood Road, right beside this lot. So I was reading over the easement today, which is quite lengthy. I think you need a law degree to actually understand it, but I didn't see any verbiage in there about four-wheelers. So living beside this
Four-wheelers?
four wheels,
Okay, I'm
ATVs.
sorry, just couldn't hear you.
There is some verbiage in there about recreational use, and they talk about the snowmobile trail. Which we do have a trail that goes through the snowmobile club. But you know, living next to that property, there's a lot of people who use that to go hunting. And they'll use ATVs quite often, especially the older people. They'll get a deer and they'll go out back with a four-wheeler and whatever, and they'll bring it back out. So I didn't see anything in there regarding ATV use. And as far as the snowmobile club, we run an access trail through the middle of that property to access the snowmobile trail for on four-wheelers in the fall to go out and maintain trails throughout the town. That's one of our access trails. So I just kind of wanted to see, you know, about that. There's really nothing in there that talks about that. And also, it also mentions about rifle hunting season, about people using that property, but A lot of people use that in spring turkey hunting. They use it for upland game hunting in the fall, and then they do obviously use it during rifle season and also muzzle loading season. So there's some other usage on that besides rifle hunting season as well. And I just really hate to see that land be cut off by hunters, you know, in any way, shape or form, whether it's somebody who would use a four-wheeler if they got a deer to get it out. Now they see that, you know, the land trust owns that or whatever, that they may not be able to do that. And also, as far as the land use itself, I mean, we're working on a fire station proposal now, and we're looking at potentially property. We do have a lot over here, but if that lot doesn't work out, the town may be looking for future growth, you know, not just now, but, you know, 50 years from now. And if we landlock all these larger land properties from future use, you know, we'll have to then in turn go out and spend the money to buy property, if it's even available, you know, for building things like a school or a fire station, or, you know, who knows what the town may need in the future. I just think the proposal is great, but I think the town should really have the ability to use that property in the future if they deem it necessary, not just the fact that it can never be used again for any structures. And that's all written in that proposal. So that's pretty much what I'm gonna say. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have anyone? Somebody from representing Royal River? Alan, step up.
Alan Stearns with the Royal River Conservation Trust. I am not a resident of Pownell, but we are a landowner and community governed with several members of our board.
Turn and speak to the group.
Hi there. I was planning on commenting later, but what I might do is merely respond to Scott Pollock's comments while they're fresh in people's head. And if I bounce up and down, give me sidewalls. The first issue that Scott mentioned was ATVs. I'd turn your attention to page 3 of the document. Land use and division in red, note for reviewers. This is what the town of Pownell may allow or the town may do. Specific example in red, ATVs. Then you look at paragraph A, land use, all-terrain vehicles, hunting and trapping specifically there. So the town, we, the land trust, won't own this parcel. The town will continue to own it. On some levels, nothing will change, and expressly, the town can allow hunting, any season of hunting, ATV. You could turn this into an ATV park if the town decided to. We would have no jurisdiction over that. So that paragraph is key to say, hunting is up to the town, ATVs are up to the town, etc. The other on snowmobiles, the one thing that my organization we wanted to make sure we could open up one trail, which we call the primary trail. So that's the only area where we will actually have a right in this document to do something. We've always wanted to more express permission to clear what is essentially an existing trail and connect it to ours. So in that section, which is page 7, you'll see in red, this describes what RRCT may do. And you'll see at the end of paragraph A, a sentence, holders' rights, that's the land trust's rights, shall in no way interfere with snowmobile trails, but such trails may be co-located. So we may be able to allow the continuation on a short stretch of hiking trail and snowmobile trail co-located, or the snowmobile trail could be run over the entire trail. Anyway, we will in no way interfere with snowmobile trails, period. It's right in the deed.
Would that include the access trail that we use from Elmwood Road out to the existing snowmobile trail or crossing the property?
I would
Which
say,
I think is what you would need in the main trail.
Well,
That's all there.
so what I would say, the first thing I would say is that the town can choose to allow any snowmobile trail anywhere on the property, period. There is no prohibition of the town allowing existing snowmobile trail or double, do any snowmobile trail you want, move it, anything. This document prohibits nothing with respect to snowmobiling. The only thing that it says is that, is the primary trail, which you'll see on the map, the very last page shows the primary trail. That's the only place where the land trust can be the sheriff, so to speak, that we can go out there without town permission and put up a sign that says welcome, or this is the town permission to do that. So on that primary trail, that can be co-located with snowmobiles. Your snowmobilers might bump into snowshoers. And that is our right to invite the snowshoers on the snowmobile trail if you make that primary trail a snowmobile trail. And some of which is currently a piece of the snowmobile network. I will limit my comments there now and let others speak and answer any questions of anybody this evening.
If I can step out of my role and just ask a couple of questions myself.
Front row.
So if I heard you correctly, Alan, if the current snowmobile trail, for instance, which is dependent upon adjacent landowners for permission to connect, and one of those gets shut off for one reason or another, it would allow the snowmobile club and the town to allow for rerouting of that, if that were possible, to adjust for adjacent landowners that may have changed rights.
Yes,
Correct.
with no, you don't even have to ask the land trust. You have the right to do things like route snowmobile trails as you do today.
And I just noting that you're talking about ATVs in the easement. 100 years from now, there may be a completely different type of vehicle in the market. Maybe a hovercraft for all I know. How does language and easements that are speaking to specific technology or type of vehicle respond to something like that 100 years from now? Or does the language need to be broader or?
Well, on that, so I guess this, whether it's ATVs or whether it's a new elementary school, there are some intended hard lines or soft lines or no lines in this document. So specifically for ATVs, page 3, paragraph A, outdoor recreation includes but is not limited to blah, 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 blah. So there's language like that tries to say, here's a list of 20 things that today are outdoor recreation and hovercrafts. If we collectively decide that hovercrafts are outdoor recreation, that language gives us the option. I distinguish that from if 20 years from now, Town of Pownell said, we really want an elementary school on these S curves, or the S curves have gone away or whatever, that would get to be an easement amendment. Not dissimilar to the conversation you were having earlier today, that amendments can be tricky and have their time and place and all of that. And a conservation easement amendment also brings with it, the Attorney General has a role. The easiest amendments, you bring in the Attorney General and the Attorney General says, okay. And a sophisticated or a complicated amendment, like putting in an elementary school, the Attorney General would say, you need a judge because there are those thresholds. So.
And just one other question. Scott was talking about hunting during rifled deer season. Is that specifically limiting language on purpose, or does that really need to be broadened?
Are you looking at a paragraph you can point me toward?
Yeah, on page 7, paragraph A, under reserved rights or regulation.
So what this says, again, this is dealing with RRCT's trail and our trail. And what this says is that the town can shut the trail during rifle deer season. So that says if you want to kick everybody off during rifle deer season, the town can remove our rights, shut our trail, say no runners, no hikers, no snowshoes during deer rifle season. I am not as familiar with deer seasons and also hunter aesthetics, hunter ethics. But this does, turkey season, typically compatible with hikers on one trail. It just says that one season, right, deer season, the town can say, cool it, everybody separated. If you chose to, you could. So
Really reserving a right for the town to.
reserving the right for the town to eliminate our rights during that one season. I'd be cautious, if it's probably 5 months of hunting seasons or more, if I wouldn't really want to go into this easement if you could kick us off for 5 months a year. That's not really worth it for me. But anyway, that's the issue there, that other than that, shutting down the trail during rifle season, back to the first pages, the town can do any ordinance it wants to on hunting to say no hunting, shotgun only, archery only, hunting under state law. So the town retains the right and the obligation to manage hunting if there are hunting issues that the town might want to limit beyond state law.
All right.
I have a question for Alan.
Alan?
Are there other easements in town for Royal River, our town for your trail that we've approved?
So this, most simply, would be the first of our conservation easements on town-owned land in Pownell. Plenty of other towns where we have a conservation easement on town-owned land, and also in Pownell, several other examples of where we have a conservation easement on private land. So in Pownell, Snowfields Farm, we have a conservation easement that says Snowfields Farm will never be a subdivision. And I could list others.
We need to do a lot now. The private property owners, that's different, they can put their signage up, sort of help protect you if they don't want hunters around your easement.
I'm not sure exactly what you just said, so no, I'm not going to agree with you. We have conservation easements on private property, and I'd urge the chair maybe to limit this a bit to focus it on this particular easement, because every easement is different, can be different. Off the top of my head, examples in Pownell, but many easements will say the private landowner, such as here, fully retains the right to manage hunting. So there are many easements where we have no role in hunting or public access whatsoever. There are other easements where either the landowner gave to us or we chose to buy the rights of public access and hunting. So there are plenty of examples of where we are the guardian of hunting rights or otherwise. It depends on how the easement is written. Each one is different and the fine print matters on each one.
All right, I have just one more question. I think it's an important question today. Legal action. If there's an issue or a problem, there's two people that are going after you and us. Maybe an ATV ran over one of the hikers. I don't know. Well, how do you address that?
So with respect to this document, you'll notice, I pointed you to the two pivotal paragraphs already. I could then point you to pages 11, 12, 13, 14, et cetera, which address issues of liability, enforcement, dispute, termination, all of that. So this document, again, all of the fine print is fairly standard for 30 years. Towns and land trusts and private landowners been working out, but the town's attorney reviewed this and said routine balancing. So it's all spelled out in a lot of fine print with both of us wanting to avoid dispute, exposure, litigation, all of that. So it's.
What's your opinion about township? What's your opinion on that?
You ask your question.
Liability, that it's not, it could be a liability. Are we going to assume that?
The town has the liability now of it. So we'd still have the liability.
Right. So it's a good question. Don't want to diminish the question. But well, the liability shouldn't change, will not change. The primary trail will be administered by the land trust, but snowmobiles have their own sort of liability codicil. I mean, anybody on a town land, we're covered by the state of Maine recreation law. So I don't, our attorney looked at it and didn't foresee any problems. I think, I think the more important question is, so who's responsible for somebody getting on the primary trail and trashing? Who's gonna clean it up? I mean, that's the issue that we're gonna have to, if this passes, we'll have to work with Rural Land Trust here. So where's the maintenance on the primary trail, right? But in terms of liability, I think the town, the attorney spent a lot of time looking at it. It's a very good question.
Thanks. I had one more question.
Go ahead.
Real quickly. How many more town lots does the land trust have its eyes on? Or it's the same type of easements?
So to back up a bit on this, it would, and Matt and others from the Conservation Commission might respond later. The town invited us in on this, so it wasn't necessarily that we had our eyes on it, so much as we said, if the town wants to invite this conversation, then we'll come to the table. We didn't want it to be us declaring that we had the answers. The Conservation Commission is looking, I think probably there is, well, yeah, I'll let you answer.
Matt Welch, Chair of the Conservation Commission. We've worked hard on this document to ensure that the town has as much control over our land as possible. We are the stewards and keepers of town land, so our job and our charge in our Conservation Commission, when you sign on is, we're responsible for maintaining, cataloging, monitoring, everything from invasive species to people coming onto it, so our goals are, we want to keep the land as forest and open space always. So right now we're working on Elmwood Road and we'll see how this goes. But our ultimate goal is to make sure that all the town forests remain forests.
Yeah, I've got a question. Conservation land is great. I lived in Pownell for, I think, 14 years now. I've never seen a map that shows where the land is in Pownell. You guys might want to put together a map that shows the locations and.
We have quite a few maps.
Okay, and maybe if they're in the town report, that might be, or if
And
downstairs.
The master map downstairs has them all on.
They do, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we can get you a copy of that.
Sir.
I'm Bob Humphrey from North Pownell, and in the interest of full disclosure, also serve on the board of the Royal River Conservation Trust. I'll spare you the long diatribe about why I think this is such a great idea, and we should push forward. But I do have a question that's sort of come up And since this is a dry practice run, let's get it out now because it's gonna come up at town meeting. In some fantastical world, if the place is suddenly overrun, rabid mountain bikers, who will enforce it?
It's a great question, Bob.
Well, I didn't hear the questions, Bob.
If there's an issue on the property with mountain bikers, trespassers, misuse of property.
Specifically, Bob, if there are a lot of mountain bikers on the primary trail, to which the land trust is the server of that trail, who will enforce, who will determine whether or not it's overused, it's unsafe? It's a great question.
Yeah, and that's part of the question.
Please do.
There's a lot of pirate trails, so they're not gonna just go down if they come in, which I don't really believe is ever gonna happen.
But it did happen up a Tryon.
Yeah, but this will sort of diagonally connect with another easement trail that we have across the street, across the road. That does not allow them, so they're not gonna come from that direction. Go to as a destination, but it could be something besides mountain bikes.
We don't have. It's a great question, and thanks for asking it, but we don't have the answer.
I can't say, I mean, like any public land that people can go on, the enforcement of rules, or if people are abusing the public land, you know, it's through signage, education, monitoring. That's where the Conservation Commission, along with the Royal River Conservation Trust, will work as a team to try to ensure that that doesn't happen. And if things are happening, we'll try to take the appropriate steps to correct them, make sure it doesn't continue to happen.
So just so that we, I'm sorry, I'm not.
Go ahead, go ahead.
So we play this out now, not a town meeting, okay, so. Step back here. If mountain bike usage gets, let's just pretend it's gonna happen, gets rampant there. And they find that the corridor to Pineland opens up or whatever. And things get, you know, the trail gets rutted and they start making pirate trails. Will the town be able to go to the land trust and say, listen, you're the primary holder of enforcement on this, but we need to talk about eliminating mountain bike. I mean, we have nothing to enforce any regulation in the town. We're not gonna be able to call Cumberland County and say, look, we have a lot of mountain bikers there. We have no enforcement ability. So we can work it out here at a hearing. What will the Conservation Commission be able to do in that kind of scenario?
Well, that's where I think we would work with the mountain bike groups and the people on education and trying to tell them that it's not allowed there. You know, in this easement, we have the control to allow whatever uses are on it or not on it.
So Alan, could you help out on this one? You may not be able to, but I want to have the conversation now.
Yep.
Not a town meeting.
I'm gonna try to sequence this. I'm gonna ease into the sort of the who gets to wear a gun question on that. A starting point is to introduce us, the land trust. Well, there are 4 of us on staff, and I brought with me tonight our newest staff, Amanda Lassard in the back. There are 4 of us in staff covering 7 towns, but we have an army of volunteers, and Dick Hoag and what's his name, Bob Humphrey, and a few other people in this room, but we turn out 10, 20, 30 people a week or a weekend to help us remove bottles, build bridges, remove barbed wire, all of that. It's what we do. It's fun. And the reason we want to sign up for this trail is we get a kick out of it. And we turn out volunteers in effort, and we know how to educate people. We know how to stick a staple gun sign up on a moment's notice to say, Don't look left, don't look right, dogs on leash, not on leash. That's what we do every day. It's fun, it's easy, and it's not as hard for us as it is for a town with no parks department, a town with nobody on staff who might have ever been a half mile into those particular woods. So I honestly think we're part of the solution. We have people who want to make this trail fun, used, exciting, etc. The second issue, the hypothetical of mountain bike, we talked about the hypothetical of ATVs. The way that we wrote this is if you as a town want continuous ATV use, that's your right. That's between you and your lawyer, you and your ordinances, you and your town meeting. If this place gets overrun with ATVs, we did not give ourselves jurisdiction. Mountain bikes is a little bit squirrely. Not sure I can point to the word mountain bike in this document, but that's partly because I'm not sure there's going to be that many. Our trail across the street has 4 different landowners, one of whom is in the room, whose deeds limit mountain bikes. We cannot invite mountain bikes on our own trail because of those deeds. And when we notice mountain bike tracks, we do our best to say no but mountain biking and the problem goes away. So this particular Elmwood Road lot, the mountain bike trail dead end spur, not particularly appealing. We won't be building bridges to mountain bike standards. So I'm not sure it's going to be that, it's certainly not going to be overrun with mountain bikes. Of course, we'll see tracks here and there and people will try it out and this, that, or the other, but usually a no mountain bike sign works. So then getting into the fine print and the weeds, the question is who can put up a no mountain biking sign? One of the answers is the town can today, tomorrow, in the future, the same way. It's your land. You can figure out how to regulate it. You can put up a black and white sign and call the sheriff, and that's what you as a landowner have the right to manage your land. What we would do, the key sentence, which is a little bit squirrely, but we drafted it this way intentionally, again, page 7, smack in the middle of paragraph A. The sentence starts maintenance rights. I'll add in Royal River Conservation Trust's maintenance rights of this primary trail shall include, Holder is Royal River Conservation Trust. So our maintenance rights shall include our installation of our signs and our adoption of rules that are, this is the key squirrely word, that are not inconsistent with any rule or regulation of the town. So that's a little bit of there is the risk of, do you guys want me to clamp down on the mountain bikes? I can do it. I can do rules, I can do signs, I can do that. Just make sure if you tell me that's inconsistent, it can be a bit of a wink and a nod of, hey, Alan, can you take care of the mountain bike problem without the town needing to adopt an ordinance? So we can do things as long as they're not inconsistent with rules and regs of the town. So that's what we want to be. And so the mountain bikes is where that falls in, is we're not going to kick mountain bikes off if the sentiment in town is that you like mountain bikes. This is the squirrely language that will govern dog leashes. And that's the issue that every trail we have ever managed. You get the issue of dogs off leash, dogs this thing. You probably have almost no ordinance language on dogs off leash. You probably rely on state law. We can say, hey, dogs on leash, as long as we determine you guys don't object. If dogs on leash are a problem and it's not inconsistent with any policy of the town, then we can clamp down on dogs, because sometimes it's just necessary with, it's too many people, too many dogs. We on our own trails are increasingly just saying either no dogs or dogs on leash, that you gotta, and we go out there and we're the people you don't want to meet on the trail saying, come on, really? You see that sign? You see that dog? Figure it out. So that's what we do. I actually, in case I don't get up again, one typo in the warrant. We are legally the Royal River Conservation Trust, not the Royal River Land Trust.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's very helpful, I guess. Our ducks grow.
Yeah, and our experience has been making sure that those advocates for a particular article have folks ready to speak to those issues at the town meeting. Thank you. That they're proactively ready to speak to and address the town meeting in a constructive way, so.
If I could just add a quick comment. Probably be helpful there. The select board could at least offer some. Not.
Absolutely. We're gonna rely on the Conservation Commission to really sort of. They're gonna be the lead on this one. We will have whatever answers. There are some questions that we just don't have answers, like Alan brought up dog on leash thing, that just put my mind to overdrive, thinking, you know, there are so many people that live in Pownell who love the idea of walking a dog without a leash. How is the select board gonna respond to that? We'll have to talk about it, we'll have to figure that out. That's the kind of thing that can derail a warrant item at a town meeting. You get 10 people who are dog advocates, and all of a sudden, you know, the sky is falling, so we want to be prepared for that. So that's why we have these public hearings, so we can think about all these idiosyncratic things that are gonna come up.
Yeah, I think the short answer is already public.
Well, to Alan's point, and I don't wanna, we are governed, we decide to govern ourselves by the state statute of dog voice command. Doesn't not necessarily have to be on a leash, but has to be on the voice command. Are we going to have to involve ourselves in dog leash ordinance? Well, if, let's just say, this is just for giggles, that hopefully the trail become very popular and we have a pineland scenario where the Conservation Trust says, look, we can't coexist with dogs off leashes. So then the Conservation Trust is contrary to the town policy on dogs. I want to be able to be clear on that at town meeting, how we're going to proceed with it. Thanks.
Mr. Groverman?
Thank you for being patient.
But good progress. I just want to make a couple comments. One about Prairie Mountain already has the dogs leashes
Can you
policy.
come up to the mic?
Okay, and it's rarely used in my experience, and it's up to people like us who are walking there, and dogs are being unpleasant to address their owners, which usually gets us nowhere, but it's just sort of the way things go. Type of situation similar on other trails. But I was more my attention was the mountain biking stuff, whether that was just a for instance or a specific anticipated issue. Okay. So I'm probably one of the few people who's ridden them out. I think that the primary trail is the existing sort of road that goes from Elmwood Road back into the property. I've ridden the mountain bike on there in the past. And I guess my question for Alan is, if the town doesn't care about that, does the Road Conservation Trust, are they likely to want to put mountain bikes on? the primary trail.
I think I'm gonna say through all of this, we want to be a good partner with the town. So it's not what we want, it's what we all want. And I think that many of these issues in the hypothetical feel interesting, but in reality, the answers become more clear. What I'd say, and we haven't talked about where would these mountain bikers come from? Again, we won't invite them on our trail, so they won't be coming from our trail. And if they're coming down those S curves, that doesn't feel like a good idea. And if they're parking in our parking lot, then they'll be crossing the road, which isn't something we want a lot of people doing blindly. So there are some safety reasons why we would not promote mountain biking on this particular parcel, even if we allow it. And often, as long as nobody's doing. Anyway, so there's reason to make sure, somebody asked about liability, but the liability is on roads and fender benders and crossing roads and trails, crossing roads and all of that. That's the real issue that we should all be working on, or dogs on roads or whatever. Anyway, so our inclination would not be to prohibit bikes if there's no problem, and the occasional bike, and in the winter, somebody with fat tires is out on the trail, good for them. But if it becomes an issue, we would consult with the Conservation Commission and or the Select Board to say, do you mind if we, using that paragraph in the middle of that sentence in the middle of paragraph 8, do you mind if we tighten things up on leashes and bikes, or whatever the other issue is that we will have the power to tighten up if you choose to stay silent? And sometimes that buys us the political mess that you're trying to avoid. But again, it's not rocket science to tell somebody to put their dog on a leash or to go bike somewhere else.
It's not rocket science, it's just beautiful.
It again, I get back to the point that we've been through it all. And I think of our Little John Island Preserve. When we finally said, okay, the rules are posted, the rules are known, they're not framed as rules, they're framed as a culture of stop and read this, please, or everybody loses. We have some real success stories of asserting a presence on a trail, and 99% of the people want to comply. And if it's really clear what the rules are, then that one outlier gets the look, gets stink eye from 99% of the people on the trail, rather than waiting for a ranger to come along. It's our trails are so much lower use and lower impact than the state park. Nobody wants to be a ranger at a state park, but our trails are mostly community trails where everybody in this room would be able to say, did you see the sign back there?
Now, that brings another question. So Royal River Trust applies a place or a sign to post any regulations. I don't like the idea of that going down there with this big gun and finding a pine tree and taking a black and white copy. Be sure to look at that. So you guys supply something simple but nice where post these regulations or rules.
This gives us the right to do what we do on all of our other trails, which is either an immediate temporary, hey, there's somebody new in town who's leaving a lot of dog poop on this trail, wake up right now. We, intervene quickly with a temporary sign, or then we're very proud of our permanent signage, which is so much more welcoming and has all the fine print and rules, but is not in your face. It's just clear culture of compliance and respect.
I had one more quick question. I mentioned earlier about town land use and the future needs. If something should arise in the future where the town needed to build a school or a police department, or anything like that, is there any easier way to write the easement that would make that a little easier rather than going to a district attorney and a judge to try to get, approval? And what I'm referring to would be like a town, a town building, amenity like a town where they needed a new town garage and they, exhausted all the resources in this particular lot that's now in easement, would there be any easier way to write that proposal or that easement that would make that easier to get if needed in the future?
So a couple different answers. The first one I'd say is that this particular lot, because of the S-curves on Elmwood Road and because of the streams and gullies and wetlands, I don't think this lot is particularly suitable for many of the town's future needs. I think this particular lot is really well suited for a town forest and for recreation. So I don't have concerns about a conservation easement for this generation to say has been a town forest, will be a town forest. I think that other lots will require more discussion to make sure the town knows what they're signing up for. And certainly there are other tools that other towns have used. And again, when we started this with the Conservation Commission, and I could find the memo, might have been a full 2 years ago, maybe a little bit sooner. I said, I didn't want to start going to meetings in Pownell to discuss 10 different ways to skin this cat if I only had one or two of the tools that I was able to use. So the Conservation Commission chose a conservation easement because of its simplicity and permanence, and that cuts both ways. But any number of, it's more of an essay question, not for tonight, of how some other towns have used covenants or zoning or charter provisions. Read the newspapers. I mean, just this morning, some town in the mid-coast is putting an affordable subdivision in the town forest. It's a very active issue in municipal law. So I'd be happy to give you my knowledge, but to say, if you want to get creative, pay people like this, let me go home for the night, because there are different ways to skin this cat if you choose. And then maybe the final thing that I'd say is we have a conservation easement surrounding Yarmouth's middle and elementary school on McCartney Street. They needed to expand the elementary school. The AG said yes, the judge said yes. The elementary school expanded. So the key for a judge is a public purposes test, that if you want to put a private business, the judge is going to say no, but if you have a legitimate public purpose, the judge will say, yep.
Okay, that's nice.
Just speaking from the Future Facilities Committee, there was a group in subcommittee that got together and looked at, identifying all the town property and kind of ranking them in terms of likelihood of it being a good site for a fire or public works. That property was probably the lowest, in this particular instance on that list.
It's just a good question to raise, for now and or future.
Yep.
Easements on town property.
So Scott, to further the discussion, just so you have it, on next year's town warrant, there will be an article which asks the town to appropriate X amount of dollars to have all the town properties assessed for what potential their use is going to be. So this would be in addition to the Conservation Commission's work, but the town would actually hire an outside appraiser to look at. So this is what we have. We have a lot of town land. In descending order, this is the value that this particular person puts on that. We'll have to work with the Conservation Commission to develop criteria on, what's important. I'm sure that'll be filtered through the comprehensive plan. But on next year, we didn't want to do it this year because it would complicate this particular question on the ballot. But next year we'll have that question. We look at everything and evaluate, so. And if it's best suited for conservation, then hopefully that'll give the Conservation Commission impetus to develop a different, another relationship with land trust, with conservation. Okay, so we have thought about that. We just didn't want to complicate this important question with another question that would say, well, if we're going to evaluate all our town land, why aren't we evaluating this?
It's a dry run for town meeting.
You bet.
Any other questions or comments on Article 33? Okay, seeing none, good discussion, folks. Thank you. Article 34, and it's a written ballot, see if the town will vote to extend or exceed the property tax levy limit established for the town of Pownell by state law in the event that a municipal budget approved under preceding articles results in a tax commitment that is greater than the property tax levy limit. Select Board's recommending approval. This is a budget article that we pass annual or discuss annually. And it's required to be a written budget ballot. We're not expecting to exceed the tax levy limit. However, we keep this article each year as a housekeeping article. Any questions there? Okay. We'll go to Article 35 to see if the town will vote to set September 15th, 2024, December 15th, 2024, March 15th, 2025, and June 15th, 2025 as the dates on which 1/4 of taxes shall be due and payable, and to charge interest at the rate of 8.5% per year computed on a daily basis on any portion of the installment dues that remains outstanding as of September 16th, 2024, December 16th, 2024, March 16th, 2025, and June 16th, 25th. Number 2, to see if the town will permit tax collector or their designee to waive unintentional tax interest payment shortages in an amount not to exceed $5. And number 3, to see if the town will vote to authorize the tax collector to accept payment of real estate property taxes not yet due or assessed pursuant to 36 MRSA Section 506. The town does not apply interest on such collection. The Select Board recommends approval. Do we have any questions there? Fairly standard article. Okay. And that's the limit by law, correct? The 8.5% that we charge?
Yes, the state sets the percentage.
Okay. So that question typically comes up. Article 36, to see if the town will vote to set 4.5% as the rate to be paid by the town on abated taxes pursuant to 36 MSRA Section 506-A, and to authorize such interest paid or abatements granted to be appropriated from overlay funds, or if necessary, from unassigned fund balance, AKA surplus. Select Board is recommending approval, and we're required by law, statute, to have an interest rate set on abatement taxes. Any questions there? Moving right along. See if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board to transfer not more than 3% of the town's budgeted expenditures between budget line items within an individual department, provided that the town's total budgeted expenditures shall not be increased. Select Board is recommending approval. Any questions on 37? Okay, seeing none. Go to 38. We'll catch up here. See if the town will vote to authorize Select Board to transfer any unexpended funds to the carry forward accounts within departments to complete projects from the previous fiscal year. Select Board recommends approval. And this gives the Select Board authority to approve carry forward requests from department heads and or committees. These requests are always presented at the first Select Board meeting in July and must either have a signed contract, purchase order, or fiduciary obligation to fulfill. Any questions there? Okay. Article 39, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board and town treasurer on behalf of the town to accept any gifts, unanticipated donations, or pass-through funds that may be provided by individuals, business associations, charitable groups, or other organizations which have not been listed in any of the previous articles. If the select board determines that the gifts, donations, or pass-through funds and their purposes are in the best interest of the town and to expend such funds for their intended purposes, select board is recommending approval. Questions on this one? Okay, 40, to see if the town will vote to authorize select board to seek, accept, disperse grant funds from private, county, state, federal agencies for the purpose so designated in each specific grant. Select board is recommending it. And it basically allows the select board to seek and carry out grants for specific purposes during the year. Any questions there? Okay, 41, to see if the town will vote to allocate funds received from the registration of snowmobiles to the Rocky Coast Riders and Tri-County Penguin Snowmobile Club for the purpose of maintaining their snowmobile trails, which are open to the general public without charge for snowmobile purposes and any other uses that may be authorized by the property owner. Select board is recommending approval, and it's really appropriating money to the 2 local snowmobile clubs for the upkeep of the trails. The money is collected through the snowmobile registrations. Any questions there? That's it. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I guess that's it for the public hearing.
Becky, when's our next public hearing?
May 13th at 6 o'clock prior to the regular select board meeting.
So we'll go through this again. So the whole purpose of this was to give you the material. If you're interested in reading, if you want to read the conservation easement, if you want to ask any questions about any of the articles. we got, 2 weeks of homework and come back and ask questions. We'll go over it again. So thank you for coming out. Thank you for the really good questions and the good discussion. And I hope that became a little bit clearer. Look forward to seeing you on our next one. There are no other things to talk about, and I'll move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're working awesome.